With that down and out of the way, let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets sent into us by Michael Antonucci, who writes, I know you and Robert's opinions on the Birds of Prey film coming out, and I saw that review embargo comes out on February 5th, which is a day before release. I am disappointed since the DCEU has been on a trend, really it's been on more of a roll, and this is a red flag for sure. Although there is always a chance it could be good. All right, thanks for sending that in, man. And what Michael is talking about is that there are a number of film critics and stuff like that who have been mentioning on social media that they have been informed that the review embargo for the Harley Quinn movie Birds of Prey is actually not lifting until February 5th. That is normally a giant red flag of suckage. When a movie does not lift its review embargo, normally, not always, there are exceptions, but normally, when a studio does not lift a review embargo for their film, that opens just 24 hours later. And of course, it's going to open everywhere on Thursday evening. That's the very next day. So absolutely, giant red flag. Giant red flag. Or is it? Or is it? I think there's a couple things here that we need to keep in mind. And I think there's a couple things here I want us all to take into consideration, okay? When talking about, is this review embargo thing? Is this a big surefire sign that this movie absolutely sucks? Or could there be something else to it? I want to throw a couple things out there for us to keep in mind and take into consideration. Okay, number one, let's start with the negative possibility here, okay? Negative possibility number one. The review embargo lifts the day before the movie comes out. As is normally the case when that happens, it means the movie sucks. It means the movie sucks. If Warner Brothers had any faith in this film, just like if any studio has any faith in their movie that they're releasing, they lift the review embargo well before one day before the movie comes out. To not do that is waving a giant red flag to all of us that says, hey guys, we don't believe in our own film. We don't believe that you guys are going to like this movie, so we're not going to let word of mouth get out about it. That's one possibility. That is one possibility. However, I believe there are a couple of other things to keep in mind here when it comes to this whole review embargo thing. The first thing I think we need to keep in mind is the fact that there are some reports coming out right now that Warner Brothers may be releasing their review embargo earlier than they anticipated. And that wouldn't be the first time that that's ever happened. It wouldn't be the first time that's ever happened. If you guys remember correctly, Wonder Woman had a review embargo that was very, very, very late. And then as they got closer to the release date, Warner Brothers decided that the best thing for them to do was to lift the review embargo earlier. And of course, they did lift it earlier. And it turns out everybody really enjoyed the film and everybody liked it and yada, yada, yada. So I've been hearing some whispers from some circles that Warner Brothers may in fact be lifting the review embargo earlier. The second thing I think we all need to keep in mind, and this one is important, is that let's say that the review embargo for the day before the movie being released stays in place. Okay, that's bad. But as often happens in the movies today, there are usually two different kinds of embargoes. There's the review embargo, but there's also what they call a social media embargo. Many times, we go to press screenings and there will be a review embargo date, like a date that you can't put out your full review until this date, but they may say, but the review embargo, the social media embargo lifts tomorrow, which means you're free to jump on your social media and just give your quick thought on the movie. Warner Brothers apparently is lifting the social media embargo of Harley Quinn and her Birds of Prey on January 29th, which is many days before the movie opens. You see, normally, and again, I use the word normally, not every time, just normally. Normally, when a studio really doesn't believe in their film at all, and they put off that review embargo until like the day before it comes out, normally they also wouldn't allow social media reactions to go out until that time also. The very fact that it sounds like, and again, I haven't got confirmation on this from Warner Brothers personally. I haven't heard a Warner Brothers representative directly say this. I'm just telling you this is what we're hearing, okay? If Warner Brothers is releasing a social media embargo on January 29th, that is essentially at least letting the people who have seen the movie jump online and say whether they just liked it or not. I mean, I think you got to take that into consideration. I think that is a positive sign. I think that's a positive sign. Now, understanding, I don't think this movie looks very good. I don't think the trailers have been very good. But if they are releasing the social media review embargo, yeah, it's not good that they're holding off the full review embargo till later. But if they're releasing the social media embargo, I think that has to play into when you're thinking about, does Warner Brothers even believe in this movie or not? Because if they're lifting the social media review embargo like a week before the movie comes out, that's a positive thing. It doesn't automatically mean the movie's good. We've seen lots of review embargoes lift early to bad movies. So I'm not saying that it means it's good, but it's at least a decent sign that maybe Warner Brothers does have some belief in their own film. So that's something you got to keep in mind as well. There's also a third thing I think we need to keep in mind. In the case of a Star Wars movie, like, for instance, The Force Awakens, which really desperately wanted to hide some of the big spoilers, like the dying of Han Solo and things like that, or something like Avengers Infinity War or Endgame, where there are major spoilers in those movies that those studios would want to try to protect. Oh, okay, yeah. You don't normally associate something like that with a smaller film compared to those big major ones. With a smaller film like The Birds of Prey and the Fabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. But we do have to take in consideration maybe there are some big, huge surprises. What if, and again, this is just a big what if, but what if Jared Leto's Joker does make a cameo in this thing? If that is the case, then it has the repercussion of, you could sort of see why Warner Brothers would want to keep that under wraps, couldn't you? Like, that would be considered a big surprise. Let's go one step further into really ludicrous, ridiculous territory that I'm absolutely sure is 100% not true. But I'm just saying for the sake of the discussion. What if Ben Affleck pops up in this movie as Batman? Or maybe not even Ben Affleck. What if Robert Pattinson makes a quick appearance as Batman in this? I'm not saying either of those scenarios are likely. Please understand. I'm just saying, in a case like this movie, if Warner Brothers feels that they have something in it that is so explosive and would be so surprising to the audience that they really want to make sure they keep it under wraps, something like that could maybe influence them to take the extra steps and measures to keep it under wraps and hold off a review embargo until later. Again, I'm not saying that is what they are definitely doing. I'm just saying it's something we got to keep in mind when trying to assess if this late review embargo date is actually a really negative thing, or could there be other things? So again, the things to keep in mind. Number one, late review embargo lifting is never a good sign. It's not always tragic, but it's never a good sign. But number two, understanding that, there have been whispers that they might be lifting that review embargo a little bit earlier. Number three, there have been reports that the social media embargo is actually going to lift on January 29th, which is a pretty decent thing. And then the fourth thing to keep in mind is, what if, like some of the bigger movies, and I'm not saying this is likely, that there are some major revelatory spoilers in this movie that could have, an impact and an influence on all of the DCEU moving forward, whether it's a Jared Leto Joker or a Ben Affleck or a Jared or a Robert Pattinson Batman. Again, not saying those are likely. But if any of those things are true, then I think that kind of mitigates this whole thing about that. So, and remember, I'm saying that as a guy who I don't think this movie looks all that good. I'm the guy who says I don't think this movie looks all this good, and I'm saying I think there may be some reasons to be a little bit optimistic here and not to get too pessimistic over the late review embargo date. And by the way, you know what else I didn't think looked very good? The Harley Quinn animated show. I thought that looked stupid. I thought that Harley Quinn animated show looked dumb. The trailers were bad, in my opinion. I'm not really a big fan of Marvel or DC's animated stuff. Nothing about that thing interests me. It looked dumb as rocks. But I had so many of you guys, thankfully, telling me over and over and over again, John, you really got to check out this Harley Quinn animated show. So I finally did, and now me and Ann are obsessed with that show. Ann and I are completely obsessed with that show. So if it can happen to the animated show, why can't it happen to the live action movie just because I don't think it looks very good and I didn't think the trailers were good? We've seen a lot of movies with bad trailers turn out to be really good, right? So maybe that's the case here. Question for you guys is, what do you think is the takeaway message here for this whole stuff about Birds of Prey and the review embargo and all that stuff? Do you think it's something to be seriously worried about? Are you feeling like me that there are enough other circumstances involved there that mitigate feeling worried and maybe we should be optimistic? I want to know what you guys think about that. Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right.